Hi there. In this video, I'm going to be learning how to build my first application with the Fastify web framework. I've not built anything with Fastify before, and as I mentioned in my previous video, I want to learn how to build a plugin for it. So I figured that the best starting point would be to look at the Fastify Getting Started guide and basically just copy and paste what they have there so I can get something really simple up and running and get comfortable with Fastify as a framework. So if you come to the Fastify website, they have a doc section up here in the main navigation. And the first thing in their table of contents is getting started. Great. So we're going to use the Node package manager to install Fastify. So I'll copy this command. We don't actually need the save bit as that's been a default in npm for quite a while now. So I've got this directory here which is ready. It's got nothing in it, as you can see, and I'm just going to use npm to install Fastify. So I'll let that run away. Great, looks like that's installed. Whoops, I haven't created a package.json. Oh no, okay. So let's do that as well. So I'm just going to do npm init y, and y says say yes to every question that npm asks. Cool. So that looks like the package.json that's created for me. You can see we now have a new package.json file. So if I cat that, so it has no dependencies in it though. Oh, it did. Ah, cool. npm smart. Brilliant. So turns out you can initialize a new project after you have installed some dependencies, and npm will cleverly pick up what's there and put it in dependencies. That's cool. I wouldn't recommend necessarily doing it that way, but that worked. Okay, so back to the tutorial on the Fastify documentation. So your first server, great, that's what I want to do. Now they have this example here, and below they mentioned, do you prefer to use async await? Yes, I do. I think async await is one of the best things to happen in modern JavaScript. I find it makes code so much more readable. I've worked in lots of applications where you're dealing with either sort of callback hell or lots of long promise chains, and that can get really confusing. So async and await is fantastic as far as I'm concerned. So we're just going to copy and paste this whole block here. And this is, as you can see, that's a complete application. So I quite like to create an src directory. So that's where I'm going to keep all my code base for the application. And yeah, in here, I think we can just create a new file, server.js, drop it in there. Cool. Okay, let's fix the formatting for that a bit. Great. Okay, so we now have our server here, and we can go straight into the terminal here and see if that runs. So I'm going to do node src server.js. Cool. Looks like it's running. So we've got a log message here. If we head back to the code, you can see in the code that we copied from the documentation, it's enabling a logger, and I'm guessing that Fastify listen automatically outputs a log message, because this code here where we have a call to Fastify log hasn't been run because there's not been any error, so that must have come from the listen method. So that's pretty neat. I quite like that. It says level 30. I don't know what that means at this point. I guess we'd need to go and read the documentation. But we have a Unix timestamp, the host name, and we've got a message which tells us where our server's listening at, and that's really nice. It's quite funny because when I write applications with Express, typically I will end up writing code that puts out a log message exactly like this. So it's really nice that this is baked in with Fastify from the start. So let's actually make a request to it. If we head back, we can see that there's a main root, just / So we should be able to just paste in the URL that we've gotten here from the log message and see a response. Cool. So I personally love curl, and it's the first tool that I go to if I want to debug some HTTP requests. There are some really great graphical tools like Postman or Insomnia, but just as a starting point, I find curl to be super useful, and often I don't actually need to use anything else. Now the -v option means verbose, and what it would mean is that curl shows me the request headers and the response headers, as well as the response body. That's super useful when you're debugging and testing out things with APIs. So let's paste in the URL that we've got from above, and let's run that. Cool. So I'm just going to zoom in on this panel so we can actually see what's going on. So here you can see the request headers that went out. More interestingly, we can see our response. So everything was okay, and it looks like Fastify is sending application JSON by default, which seems like a pretty good default for a web application framework. I guess they're expecting a lot of people to be building APIs with it, but I'm sure we can change that if we needed to. And then here we've got our hello world JSON. Perfect. So that seemed pretty painless. As they said in the docs, that was easy. It just took a bit of copy and paste. So far, there's nothing that's super different to Express for me. You initialize Fastify application, give it some options, and then you define a route. You have request and reply, which is kind of equivalent to request and response in Express. So yeah, that's not a huge difference either. And then we've just got the listening here. I'm pretty sure once I start building something a bit more involved that I'll start to see some of the differences. But right now, I can see that it's pretty similar, and I don't feel deeply uncomfortable just yet. So that's really cool. We've got our first Fastify application up and running, and I think that's a pretty good start. So in my next video, I'm going to actually start writing my first plugin, and that's what I'm really looking forward to, because we'll be writing some code rather than just copying and pasting it. So see you then.